Hello, thanks for joining us. Today we're getting lost in the world of film.
I wish to find a lost city.
It is your destiny.
Camaradas, un periodista amigo me dice que por una prueba de vida de Ingrid, una agencia de prensa en Francia paga hasta $500,000.
Oh my God. And we're joined by France 24's film critic Lisa Nesselson. And today we're starting the show Lost in the Jungle and in the British class system in the lost city of Z. It's based on a true story that I knew absolutely nothing about. Had you heard of Percy Fawcett before you watched the film?
Not only was I completely unfamiliar with English explorer Percy Fawcett, born in 1867, date of death unknown, but I didn't realize until the very end of this riveting and ravishing 2-hour and 20-minute film that this is actually a true story. I don't know how I missed that. In 1906, Fawcett, played by Charlie Hunnan, is given a chance to redeem his family name by surveying the border between Bolivia and Brazil. Now, this will take him and his assistant, played by Robert Pattinson, to uncharted and dangerous territory in the jungle for at least 2 years, and he will be away from his beloved wife Nina, played by Sienna Miller, who is really quite a feminist, but is sort of reduced to waiting for her guy to come home. I love the formality of situations like having to jump into a piranha-infested body of water to escape poison darts, and having the presence of mind to say, "Mr. Costin, secure the provisions," instead of, "Holy expletive, we're all going to die." Fawcett became convinced that the jungle is that somewhere deep in the jungle is evidence of a lost tribe as advanced as Europeans and living in perfect harmony with nature. And for this he is ridiculed, because how in the world could those savages be compared to Englishmen? But when Mr. Fawcett serves in the trenches in World War I, he learns the meaning of savage. Now, this was shot on celluloid, not digitally, and it's gorgeous. Let's take a look.
Hey, soldiers of the Queen! Come on! Mr. Coffin, come and sing with me! Come! Are you ready? We're soldiers of the Queen, my lads, who've been, my lads, who've seen, my lads, in the fight for England's glory, lads, the England soldiers of the Queen.
Makes me want to revert to Old English. Tell us, dear Lisa. The director is James Gray. He's something of a star here in France, but less known in the US, where he's from.
That is absolutely true, and my American colleagues have been known to groan aloud when Gray's films have been shown in competition in Cannes, which has happened 4 times so far, especially with The Yards and We Own the Night. This is his 6th film, and the first one not shot in his native New York. That was not New York. In the previous one, 2013's The Immigrant, Marion Cotillard delivered pages of dialogue in near-perfect Polish, which she learned phonetically, and that film was barely released in the U.S. I quite liked it. Gray is known in independent film circles in America, but that's about it, even though he assembles these high-profile casts who are dying to work with him. So we have to ask ourselves, why does he get scoffed at back home and embraced, indeed worshipped here in France? One thing, perhaps, is that he doesn't trade in snark or irony. He's telling things in an absolutely sincere manner, and that doesn't always play well in the postmodern entertainment landscape, but this is terrific.
Okay, well, the next film is an unlikely tale set in the friendlier and more familiar landscape of Paris.
Well, you don't have to go in search of unknown civilizations to experience adventure. In Lost in Paris, that destination is known, as you said, Paris, France, but in the delightful new film from the Belgian-Canadian duo of Dominique Abel and Fiona Gordon, who co-wrote, co-directed, and co-star, Paris is both familiar and unfamiliar. In an adorable prologue, a woman in snowbound Canada named Martha tells her young niece Fiona that she's off to Paris to live. 48 years later, Fiona has grown way up. She's the local librarian in her town, and she receives a letter from her aunt saying, "Help! Help! So, lanky, trusting, accident-prone Fiona straps on her backpack with the little Canadian flag on top and heads to Paris. When she gets here, Martha is missing, and Fiona ends up without her passport and money, and with a selfish but love-struck homeless man named Dom dogging her every move. Now, Martha's whereabouts vary, and she's played with comic verve by the exquisite Emmanuel Riva, who died just this past January. I could do an entire show singing her praises as a primarily dramatic actress, but here's a snippet from the film instead. Let's watch.
It's from my Aunt Martha. Dear Fiona, help. After 48 years living in Paris, they want me to move to an old people's home. Ridiculous. I'm only 88. Je cherche ma tante Martha. Photo?
Okay.
Happens regularly, doesn't it? Falling in the river. It's a comedy, but it addresses some serious subjects as well, like homelessness and old age.
Indeed it does. It's definitely a burlesque romp because Abel and Gordon are phenomenal physical comics. Their first film had no dialogue at all, just mime and gestures. But Lost in Paris incorporates decline and death, homelessness, nasty behavior, as well as spontaneous generosity and very unlikely romance. It's a wonderful film that makes use of parts of Paris that are rarely center stage.
Okay, and you're just back from the French city of Bordeaux. You were there for a sneak preview of dozens of animated movies that are in the works. And I just have to ask you, cartoons are just for kids, aren't they?
Well, you can maintain that stance. You're very much mistaken. Since the annual get-together called Cartoon Movie began in 1999, the number of feature animated films made here in Europe has quintupled, 5 times more, and cartoons' emphasis on co-productions, I think, has played an enormous part in that flourishing. Animation schools, incredible animation. It takes years to make an animated feature, which is why it's so exciting to follow certain ideas from their inception, when they're just concepts, all the way through to completion.
Is it possible to pick out a few to tell us about your favourites?
Well, some of the projects are just at the stage of rough sketches. Others are almost finished. And anybody who thinks cartoons are just for kids, like I said, is absolutely wrong. Why is that? In addition to talking animals, that's standard, including a camel in a film called Hump, erudite monkeys in The Prince's Journey, and also Unicorn Wars, about that old standard, teddy bears battling unicorns. A surprising number of vampires and zombies. There were refugees from the Spanish Civil War, victims of the Nazis, battered wives, terminally ill children, human trafficking, and heroic resistance during the Iran-Iraq War, rendered in animation. Many projects got their starts as graphic novels. That's the case with a Spanish project I absolutely adore called Buñuel in the Labyrinth of the Turtles. The great surrealist filmmaker Louis Buñuel had to leave Paris in 1930 after the film he made with Salvador Dali, L'Âge d'Or, got a very hostile reception. In fact, it was banned for decades. Looking for work, he sought to make a documentary about the poorest of the poor in his native Spain, land without bread, but he lacked the funds. And in this tale of friendship, a sculptor pal of his got a lottery ticket and said, hey, if I win, I'll give you the money. And he won. So a landmark of reality-based surrealism was born. The Nazis, My Father and Me is an espionage tale set in New York in 1941, scripted by Robert H. Lieberman, who's been publishing acclaimed novels for over 50 years. Recreating that era with actors would be pretty expensive, and as you can see, the preliminary artwork for the backgrounds is terrifically expressive, inspired in part by the photography of Berenice Abbott, no less. So a boy's parents are refugees from Vienna. Father and son go to Grand Central Station in New York with a suitcase. Sinister men chase the father, and the father tells his son to guard the suitcase with his life. The boy is 12, and with the help of an older woman, that would be a 13-year-old orphan, he tries to get to the bottom of what the false bottom of the suitcase conceals, a key. The French animators working on this have a stupendous track record.
World War II seems to be a recurring theme.
I can't begin to tell you how many of these deal with that. World War II also looms large in Charlotte, the first animated account of the life of Charlotte Solomon, which has already been treated in books, film, plays, even opera. She had an epiphany when visiting the Sistine Chapel at age 17, resettled from Berlin to the south of France to escape the Nazis, and painted 1,000 paintings in just a year year and a half before being deported to Auschwitz, where she died at age 26. Director Bilbo Bergeron made an animated musical film you may have seen called A Monster in Paris. This theme is going to be very different, and it should be done in 2019. Gorgeous widescreen animation characterizes the project Canaan, about a nun, a member of the Black Sisters convent in Bruges, who's sent to America in the 1840s to proselytize, and getting lost on the prairie owes her life to the nomadic Lakota Sioux who rescue her and whose tradition she ends up embracing. The director describes it as a Flemish Western where the Indians win. Fully a third of the projects, there were 55 of them, were aimed at adults, and you can't get more adult than The Red Jungle, a semi-documentary about the FARC revolutionaries in the Colombian jungle. There's the attraction of the jungle again. It's based on the collected emails of a leader who had the diabolical idea to kidnap Ingrid Betancourt and other long-term hostages for the money to finance their increasingly irrelevant guerrilla activities. And from the Romanian director Anca Damian, whose two previous fact-based animations were brilliant, comes The Fantastic Voyage of Morona, a family film about a dog and how it selflessly touches the lives of three different owners. The visual style is really, really special.
All right, it looks absolutely fantastic. Well, Lisa, thank you very much. We're going to leave you with that. Remember our website. We're also on Twitter and Facebook. There's more news coming up on France 24 after this.
La peur. Tu calmes. Tu calmes. Tu calmes. Un petit dame. Tu es qui, toi?
Je m'appelle Solange. Je t'ai réveillée?
Oui, tu m'as réveillée. C'est urgent?